it's James, and I'm here today with a little public service announcement about filling a Winnebago EKKO with water. Now, this video was prompted by a recent post we made on social media, and based on the responses we got, it seemed like there were some misconceptions about how Winnebago has built the EKKO. So we decided to make this video to sort of set the record straight. But first, before we get into that, you need to know two things about how Steph and I use water in our RV. The first thing to know is that we actually drink the water from our onboard storage tank. Now, in an EKKO, this is entirely feasible because it's a really large tank, so we're not too concerned about running out of water. But because we drink the water from our tank, keeping things as sanitary as possible is very important for us. Now, maybe drinking from the tank, maybe that's not for everybody because it does require that you maintain a certain set of habits, but that's what we do. And we do have a video planned about exactly what we do to make drinking that water thing that possible. And I promise that'll be coming in the spring when that's on everyone's minds. Now, the second thing to know about us and water is that we never stay hooked up with our EKKO, hooked up to city water or campground water for very long. We do connect to fill up, but then we disconnect and use the water from our onboard tank. And this is something we actually recommend to people for two reasons. The first reason is in case there's an accident, like maybe the cat bumps the faucet and turns it on while we're out of the rig. Mel. If something like that happens and you're connected to city water, well, it'll just keep running and running and running, and then you've got a big mess. But since we don't stay hooked up to city water, the amount of spillage or damage that could ever happen to us is limited by our onboard tanks. Now, granted, in an EKKO, it's got a 50-gallon accident potential, right? But we've also got a 50-gallon gray tank. So as long as we empty our gray tank when we fill up our fresh tank, and that's something we recommend everyone do, then we really don't have anything to worry about. Now, the second reason we never stay hooked up to campground water is that by using the water from our onboard supply, it keeps the water in our storage tank turning over and fresh so it doesn't get stagnant. So keep those two things in mind as we go forwards. Number one, we drink the water from the tank. Number two, we never stay hooked up to city water or campground water. Okay, now on to this social media post, which was just recently. We mentioned that I had removed the gravity fill from our EKKO, and you can see it used to be right there. It's gone. And the post wasn't even really about the gravity fill, but people saw that and it just went off the rails like, OMG, are you crazy? You're gonna regret that. How on earth do you fill the tank? That's it, I'm done. Unsubscribe, right? So let's back this up for a minute for those who may be new. This is a gravity fill. In fact, this is the one that I actually removed from our RV. Conceptually, it's a very simple thing. There is a hose or a tube. One end is connected to your water tank. That was this one. The other end is outside your RV somewhere and there's a cap on it. Now, when you want to fill, it's simple. You just stick a hose in here, the water flows into your tank. There you go, right? And to be completely clear, we're all in favor of a gravity fill option. In fact, in our Winnebago Travato, I used to fill up exclusively with a gravity fill. We like it because it's an option to fill when you can't find a pressurized source. So let's say you can't find a suitable hose to fill from. Then you can fill with jugs of water from the grocery store. And we've done that more than once. So it's sort of a backup option or a safety net, if you will. Well, so if that's the case, why did I remove it? Well, in the EKKO, Winnebago provides 3 ways to fill your fresh water tank. Gravity fill is just one of them. But we didn't ever fill up this way for 2 reasons. Toss, there we go. First, we have to stand here and hold the hose. Otherwise, it might push itself out of the tube, right? And remember, it's a 50-gallon tank. That's gonna take a long time and it's boring. Number 2, we drink the water from this tank. So if there was a little dirt on the outside of your hose and you're sticking that down in the water fill tube and then maybe it gets in the tank, yada, 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 it just didn't seem like the best option for us. So since we didn't use the gravity fill, I thought it would be okay to remove it. And 3 years later, I'm still good with that decision. Okay, so gravity fill is just one of the 3 ways to fill up. What are the other 2? They both happen here at the Nautilus panel. And the next one is the one we use day to day almost exclusively, and that's called Power Fill Tank. Now to use it, you just set the dials as indicated on this color-coded map. It's really not very hard. I suppose it might be, if you're colorblind, it might be a little more difficult, but still not that hard. Now, when you do that, the water is routed right from this hose input into your freshwater tank. And that works exactly like you might expect. And then you can fill your tank hands-free, right? So to make things easier on myself, I've added these quick connects to these connections so that I don't have to screw and unscrew the hoses every time. I just do that. It's much faster that way, and I don't have to spend time screwing on hoses. Now, and let's call this an added EKKO bonus feature. These connections are all inside a heated compartment. That's a heater vent right there. Now, on our previous RVs, I wouldn't use the power fill because, well, it was on the outside of the RV. And so that created like another thing I had to remember to winterize. It was something else I had to worry about freezing up in the cold. But that is not the case here in the EKKO. And this compartment stays pretty warm. It stays warm enough that as long as we keep the heat on, and we do at about 65 degrees, we don't worry about it. But I do have, here we go, I do have a temperature monitor in here just in case, but this alarm has never gone off. Now, I know other folks have felt the need, like they needed to add insulation to this compartment, but I have found that to be unnecessary, and we do our fair share of winter camping. Like once we overnighted on Wolf Creek Pass at almost 11,000 feet elevation. It was -2 degrees outside, and we were straight up showering with no issues. So this compartment is more or less just as Winnebago sold it to us, except for the gravity fill. I didn't want to put insulation in there because dumping and filling in freezing conditions is hard enough already. The last thing I wanted to do was to give myself a soggy, wet mat of insulation to deal with. Okay, back to filling up. I removed the gravity fill and we used the power fill. So what's the third way to fill up? And now we're back around to that filling from a jug scenario. So what you do in that case is you use the siphon fill option that's on the control panel, except it's actually labeled sanitized, but it actually says what it does right down below. Now the way that works is you set the levers as indicated on the handy color-coded map, then you take a piece of hose, and this is the one that we travel with, right? And you put this end, you connect one end here, and then you take this end and you stick it into a jug or something, and then you turn on the pump, which you can conveniently do right here. And then it will suck water from the jug or bucket or wherever you've got it, and use the pump to push that water into the tank. So if we ever came across the need to fill from jugs, we still have that option. And by the way, this filling from a jug procedure, that's one I recommend that you try out before you leave home so that you know what you're doing and you'll be satisfied that it works. That way it won't be so stressful if you have to do it out on the road. All right, filling the EKKO with water. Your key takeaways for today. First, in the EKKO, Winnebago provides 3 different ways to fill the water tank. 1, there's the gravity fill, which is a simple open tube that you pour water into. Number 2, there's a power fill, which is a convenient way to fill from a pressurized source like a garden hose in your in-law's driveway. Done that a time or two. And number 3, there is the siphon fill, which is labeled sanitize, which, if you can't find a pressurized source for water, this will get you out of a jam by using your RV's own water pump to move water from a jug or bucket into your fresh water tank. All right, your second takeaway, the water connections are all in a heated compartment. So even for winter camping, as long as you keep the heat on, there's really nothing more to worry about with any of these. And then the third takeaway is there's not one right way to do any of this. These all work. So think about your own RVing style and then decide what makes the most sense for you. I hope this helps clear up all the different ways you can fill your EKKO with water. But if you have questions, there will be a post over on the Fit RV. I'll link to it down below. You can hop on over there. And if you have questions, I'll do my best to answer them. That's going to do it for now. We'll see you next time. Bye.